From Variety, celebrating more than 118 years covering the business of entertainment, this is the Award Circuit Podcast. Expats star Sarayu Blue soon figured out what makes her character Hillary so relatable and yet unique and surprising.
Believe it or not, I think it's that she's a dimensional South Asian woman. I mean, I think that's a huge thing. Maybe not even South Asian, maybe just to see a woman that's 40 and going through so much of a journey of her life.
I'm Michael Schneider, and on this episode of the award-winning Variety Award Circuit Podcast, we talk to Expats executive producer Lulu Wang and star Sarayu Blue about their Prime Video series. Also on this episode, the roundtable discusses what's going on with Shogun, the surprise success of Baby Reindeer, and much more. It's all next on this edition of the Variety Award Circuit Podcast. Stay close. Well, hey, everyone, you get us back on the Zoom this week because everyone is running around across the country, all over the place. So, hi, everyone. I am TV editor Michael Schneider, along with Emily Longaretta, Jazz Tenke, and Clayton Davis.
By everyone, you mean you. Like, I think we're all in LA except for you.
So it's just everybody,
nice try.
Everybody's in LA. Everybody's in LA, including John Mulaney. It's just me who's all the way out here running around New York City. Upfronts are back, kids.
I was going to say, I feel like I was not expecting the slew of news to come out of Upfronts. I thought like it was like, oh, we already know a lot of the schedules, but no, everything's coming out. There's been announcement after announcement.
Yeah, it's crazy because you've got Netflix, you got Amazon now, and they both want to make a big splash with their first big upfronts here. So they're all announcing all sorts of things. They're bringing out big talent. Gotta say, Amazon's presentation was pretty impressive. They brought out some huge stars. Reese Witherspoon and Will Ferrell together was charming. They brought out Alicia Keys to perform. They had superstars throughout the afternoon. Breaking news about the Summer I Turned Pretty, like so many things they talked about. Jen Salke did a great job up there. Gotta say, impressed by
Mr. and Mrs. Smith coming back without some stars attached,
maybe,
not confirmed yet.
Question mark.
I mean, listen, I think when you announce a global world tour that's taking place this year into next year, I don't know when you're gonna have time to shoot your
and she's about to pop. She's like 7 months pregnant, so I think it's like they're like, there's some other stuff going on.
I smell an anthology series.
Exactly. there are many Mr. and Mrs. Smiths. There are countless. Every season, a new Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
But by the way, way to go with that show. That actually should be the way it goes, because staying with two people for a long time can be tiresome.
Well, then it becomes a broadcast show, which is fine. You know, you could do like a procedural broadcast show, but it's a very different show than what they wanted to do. So,
yep, I cannot wait for the Tom Selleck year for Emily and Mariska Hargitay. That's Mr. and Mrs. Smith that year.
The two of them, I mean, come on.
Emily would die.
I wouldn't be able to handle that, guys. I would literally be like, I'm moving to wherever they're filming, and I'm just going to move into set and hang out there the entire time. Like, I'm quitting and moving there.
So is this the new True Detective guest? Now it's like, who are the new Mr. and Mrs. Smiths? Just like, who's the new True Detective?
I mean, it works for Doctor Who. Why not? Yeah. Like, we need something like that.
Yeah. No, it's true. Well, again, this week we had Fox, we had NBC Universal, we had Disney, which also was pretty impressive. I mean, they brought out the star power as well. Everyone's talking about their movies now. Suddenly movies matter at upfronts, which is crazy. Then today we got Warner Brothers Discovery.
Were you very upset about movie announcements coming out?
It's like, stay in your lane. Stay in your lane.
You have this week. Come on.
Get these films away from me.
Yeah, can we talk about
Wicked? Yeah.
Can we talk about our film colleagues, by the way? We're racing around town here on the TV side in New York, putting in the legwork, and they're like off on the French Riviera.
On the yachts in the French Riviera. Like
wearing their tuxes, going to screenings. I mean, come on.
In fairness, that theater is not air conditioned, so it's hell on earth. And they're going to sit in Megalopolis
And Mike, you are wearing a tie right now, so you are in that group.
Oh, he's very New York right
only
now.
Only in New York do I put a tie on. So.
Clayton, are you glad you're not in Cannes right now, though?
Yeah, because I think it makes such a fabulous 5-day festival, and they insist on having it be over 2 weeks.
Yeah, 2 weeks.
You got a little FOMO though.
I have a little FOMO, but because I go to Cannes, I always miss out on Emmy FYC stuff, and sometimes I think in the lineup the way it is this year, like it's a decent enough lineup, but I'm like, I can wait.
Yeah,
for some of these, and then some stuff I am watching like on the sly anyway.
Yeah. Oh, you're pirating things.
There is a lot of things coming out, I feel like, of Netflix too, that at least you're keeping you busy on the film side too. And or upfronts, because I was just looking at the Netflix stuff that's being announced as we speak while we're recording this.
Catherine Bigelow's new movie. I'm so excited. It's been such a long time.
Another Happy Gilmore. I'm here for that.
If that movie doesn't come out at the same time as Avatar 3, they're doing it wrong. They have to do it again. We have to have the rematch of Cameron and Bigelow.
I will say additionally that the one I'm the most excited about from all of the upfront announcements is Kevin Williamson's new show at Netflix. It looks like it's going to be basically a sequel to Dawson's Creek, so I'm here for that, and I'm basically just putting that into the universe that's what it's going to be. But I think that it sounds, The Waterfront is the name of it, which there we go. That's all I need to know.
Which, by the way, when I read it initially, after I said On the Waterfront, I was like, what the hell is Kevin Williamson about to do? Like, sir, you don't have carte blanche to do whatever you want.
Yes, he does. I mean, he's doing this and Scream at the same time.
Not On the Waterfront. I'd be very upset. But no, I am excited. But listen, what old is new, what new is new, because we have Office coming back that was just announced. And by Office coming back, Office universe set somewhere else at a failing newspaper. I don't like that. If there are any,
I know we feel seen right now. We feel seen.
If there's a Mike Schneider in that office, it's going to be on.
Yeah, I feel like terribly like I would be the boss in that office. The terrible, like, inappropriate, makes bad puns. By the way, my JetBlue plane to New York from Burbank, the name of the plane was Blue Let the Dogs Out. That was the
my
God. Has there ever been a more perfect?
They called the dad up and said, "Can you just name this plane for us?" First thing you say, we're just going to do.
Like, as I'm loading up, I'm like, "Oh, I feel seen."
Yeah,
JetBlue.
For you.
JetBlue.
They want your business, your continued business and support.
Dad jokes, Dad TV, and dad jokes. So
thriving.
Well, so we had to take last week off because, again, we were so busy that we just couldn't pull off a roundtable.
I'm drowning in FYC.
So we are back this week. But Emily's drowning in FYC. Clayton is writing up every single show submissions. There's a lot of interesting things going on. So why don't we kind of dig into that a little bit? Because we're still waiting on some things.
Yeah, do we want to talk about the biggest news that we did cover, so I guess we can. Yeah,
let's start with that.
It looks like Shogun coming back for more.
Yeah.
And making what seems like a very likely move, as we reported, to drama series, which has now blown open.
Yeah.
Fired open the limited series race, making a lot of studios and networks happy that the front runner decided to go possibly win drama series instead.
Yeah. And so making Netflix a little less happy, given that the Crown will not necessarily be coasting its way through a drama win at this point. It's competitive.
Can I just say, it really seems like they just did a trade-off. Because at the moment, this all changes, but at the moment, it looked like FX was going to win comedy series and limited with The Bear and Shogun, and that Netflix was going to win drama with The Crown. Now, I think they just traded off. Shogun's going to win drama. I think Baby Reindeer's going to win limited series. So maybe it was just a simple, like, you have that one, I take that one.
A little backdoor trading. Could be.
As someone who oversees our Emmy issues that are separated into categories, I would like to ask that people stop changing them at this time, or just understand that your show is going to be in the wrong category. Because
we may have to give up. We may have to give up on doing these issues by categories because
truly, because I think I've changed the cover images a bunch of times. I think I've changed. Features, we can go a little bit back and forth because a lot of people read these stories online if they can't see them in the issue, so they don't see that little button on the front of the issue that says what it is. But as someone who's supposed to separate these things into categories months ahead of time, it makes I like to plan ahead, guys. I'm a big planner, and this makes it really hard for me to do that.
Yeah.
I would also just like to state that not my favorite pastime is DMing Emily to be like, by the way, Shogun's movie.
I literally see the Slack and I'm like, just throw my phone on the floor. I'm like I'm going to pretend I didn't see it and be like, sorry, I didn't know.
Because I don't know when you're like, filing stuff and I'm just like, poor Emily. Like a little bit of me was like, maybe Shogun just won't move and they'll just like do Emily a solid. And by the way, it's going to be hilarious if then they end up like, if this all like reverts back and they're like, oh, actually we're limited. Never mind.
Well, they're staying in drama if that happens. So.
Emily has decided. Clayton, I have a question for you then.
Sure.
With actress, do you think Anna takes it, or does Elizabeth Debicki?
Elizabeth, what someone called me actually, and they were like, double checking, Anna Tsui is going lead, right? And I was like, as far as I'm concerned, as far as I know right now, give or take anything else occurs, Anna Tsui is going lead. So, when you looked at that lead actress drama race, I don't know how she loses. Like if you watch Shogun and you get through episode 9, like it's one of those like kind of undeniable things. But I will say that the show as a whole, I don't know how well it does in acting categories because they're not all very well known actors in the States. Hiro, who also produced the show, is I believe what was he described as the Tom Cruise of Japan. And I think he'll have some pull in the lead actor race, but he also will have his co-star probably there as well. Elizabeth Debicki now becomes what I always call like the Patricia Arquette boyhood of The Crown. It's like, okay, we can give The Crown something maybe, and here you go. Nice supporting actress. So she's undefeated for the season right now. She hasn't lost an award for this final season yet, so maybe she just pulls it off. That's where I see it now. But again, things change. And by the way, I said this 3 weeks ago. We all collectively said the Game of Thrones final season wasn't good, and there were much better choices to make, and they still made the choice. So maybe The Crown could still pull it off.
Yeah, sometimes there's just momentum, and you can't stop that momentum no matter what.
It's prestige,
which is why it's kind of interesting that Baby Reindeer coming in and disrupting Limited, how far can that go considering this is such a late last-minute disruption? And now, of course, we're even seeing so much controversy surrounding the story and how real Martha, if that is real Martha, have we still even confirmed that's real Martha?
I don't know if that, do we know that definitive? I think she just is claiming she is, but I don't think anyone has
Piers Morgan just kind of took her at her word, I guess. But nonetheless, it's definitely sort of adding a little bit of a controversy to that, and so I wonder what that does to Baby Reindeer, sort of its late momentum, and if that's enough to kind of temper that, or where things stand with that show.
I'm going to make the argument that I think it's only helping it.
Yeah,
because with the utmost respect, I think general audiences that watch the show and then watch her on the interview with Piers Morgan. Also, by the way, not a good place to start your media tour is with Piers Morgan. So just side note. Not maybe the best person you want to sit down with first.
I don't think Real Martha has much media coaching or anyone really sort of planning out her media strategy. But
yeah. So aside from that, I think general people, consumers and people look at her and like, well, she is not all well. So that only gets more pronounced as you watch the interviews. I don't think it's her. I think it's only helping it. I mean,
I truly think that there needs to be a discussion between people. I know that this is not the same thing, but between people that are doing campaigning for shows that have sensitive topics. I mean, we talked about this 2 weeks ago with the FYC campaign for Quiet on Set and the fact that they're promoting that the way that they are. Obviously, this is not the same thing. This is not the cast. This is someone that it's happened to in real life. But it is such a sticky, weird line that I think that there's like the inside the FYC campaigning should be a whole thing.
So, and to add to that, Emily, because you bring up a really good point, I'm going to try to say this as sensitively and make sure this doesn't get misinterpreted. The part of the show that she is a part of isn't what the conversation is regarding the show itself.
Right.
If he had said that she had committed a crime against him, I don't also want to spoil things for people who haven't seen it. If he was accusing her of something that episode 4 tackles, then I think this would be a much bigger issue. But because it's not regarding that, it's just this kind of cuckoo girl that came into the bar, ordered drinks, and became obsessed with me and sent me a bunch of incoherent text messages and emails. I think that part of it is like, I don't say forgivable, but people can look past that.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it's such a sensitive topic when it has to do with mental health, and it's like this fine line needs to be walked. And I think as with this show, I think that the struggle is that this woman is doing these interviews and she's doing whatever she wants to do. And the show is also trying to promote itself as this awards contender. And as it should, it's entertainment. Of course, it's a fictional show that's based on true events, but it's a fictional series. So I think it's also just about the sensitivity around promoting the show. So I'm very curious how it will continue, because anytime these people are doing interviews now, even as actors, they're going to be asked about this, and that needs to just be really, I hope they are doing some real good sensitive
I sat down with Jessica Gunning, upcoming piece, and she exudes such grace and spoke about this. And I spoke to her before the Piers Morgan interview had dropped. She interpreted a character on a page. She has no idea who this woman is. And I think she handled it. I think she's been handling it beautifully. And, I think this will only do more visibility for that show. We already know that the Emmy voters don't watch a lot of TV. So why not focus on the thing that is actually buzzy?
That they are watching.
Yeah. This is true. I mean, I think, to your point, I think how many of them are actually going to see the Piers Morgan thing? But I think to Emily's point, it's like, what is, if Richard sits down, somebody's going to ask him about the Piers Morgan of it all. And it's his story, right? It's what he's lived through. And yeah, it's the sensitivity of he's campaigning for the show, and it's also like ripping off a traumatic thing of like this woman, if she is that woman, if she is the woman, is out here too, and somebody's going to ask him.
And what's really weird about it is that the way the show is written and the way it depicts her, she's never the villain in the story,
right?
Like not in a way that we're like, we hate her. We like feel for her, and we feel for the way he feels about her, and we actually give him a lot of flack for like the way he like maybe or may not have led her on in some way. So I mean, again, we're dealing with mental illness, and it's a sensitive subject. But besides that, with Baby Reindeer and Shogun moving out, the best news that ever came for Ripley and fellow travelers that were kind of on the bubble, because we're still on 5 shows likely being recognized. True Detective probably really happy now, because now it can really contend. I think that HBO knows how to do this.
Yeah, and Fargo was always going to be in there on the limited side, so it does sort of firm up what that competition is going to be.
It shifts it up considerably. Yeah, it opens up some spots for some of the performers as well. I'm sure Masters of the Air is really excited. They're like, oh, okay, cool. We have a better shot now of maybe climbing up. But I think when you look at drama, now it's starting to be, because that's the thing. The collective awards body was looking at drama series, and we were like, I think I said it to Emily before. I was like, we were like, morning show's number 2. That feels weird. It feels very, very weird.
That's wild.
And it's wild. Mm-hmm. Like a show that's never been nominated is number 2. And then once Shogun moved over, it was like, okay, Shogun, The Crown, morning show kind of like Gilded Age, it all started feeling easier to like kind of play along with. I think maybe it was bad news for Mr. and Mrs. Smith, because I think and Three Body Problem were like on the bubble trying to fight their way in. But I think now we have an listen, Kate Arthur called me a dog with a bone when I heard that Shogun was possibly moving. Like, it was like the most exciting thing I've seen in some time, because I don't think, recent memory, Mike, you've covered this for a long time too. I can't recall the front runner of one category opting out for something else. Because even when Beef moved from comedy to limited, like, no one was thinking it was going to sweep comedy. It moved over to limited and then became this juggernaut. There's never been like the one that says, like, I'm going to go try for a harder category. Because arguably it is a little hard, because people watch drama series differently, and they say, okay, not only do I have to watch this one and done, it's not one and done. I have to like be invested. And this show may not also come back for like years. Like, we're going to have the biggest hiatus of all time.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of when, in of all things, the animation categories, when the shows that were mostly the front runners in Family Guy and Simpsons decided to try to go for the comedy category, and and failed. They didn't get in. They didn't get nominations.
Family Guy once.
Family Guy once. You're right.
Yeah,
but
two animated shows have been nominated for comedy series: Family Guy and The Flintstones, which is the weirdest sentence of all time.
Yeah. But they quickly realized, no, it's better chance to win an Emmy by just sticking in animation. But speaking of Netflix, and maybe on a slightly happier note, let's talk a little bit about John Mulaney. I kind of alluded to Everybody's in LA at the start of our conversation. I can't stop thinking about that show. I had such a blast watching that for a week, and I miss it already.
If John Mulaney is not in conversations at Netflix right now for a new show, like, there's something very wrong. Because honestly, I feel like that is the first show in a long time to make the kind of like noise that it did as a live show on Netflix. Like, yeah. I know that, obviously Tom Brady roast, everyone was talking about for a couple days, like, sure. I just feel like the John Mulaney every single day, like, it turned into like a point, you wanted to watch it. Like, it turned into a point of viewing on Netflix. I never thought we would see that day. And it really did turn into that. And every single person he talked to made it great. And I will say, I think a lot of that was because they weren't just, obviously it was called like Everybody's in LA. I think it wasn't because these people all had something to promote. It wasn't that. It was like, all my friends live here, so I might as well just bring them on. Everyone's here for this festival.
It was a wild time. And by the way, makes a great talk series. Series would be a great place for it.
Talk series.
But listen, I think Mulaney has just like kind of cracked the code on like how to there is like an old guard of like, the I don't say media hosts, but maybe I guess better term. Like, there was obviously the Johnny Carson era, and then we got into, Leno, Letterman, and then we got into Kimmel, Fallon, and we've been looking for that next generation stop, and maybe he can kick off a new generation of, because Jesus Samaro never got arrested, but they were like maybe just perhaps on the wrong network. They were trying to reinvent how we saw that landscape of talk. And Mulaney could totally kickstart that, especially with something as visible as Netflix is. The show's great. It's even when it goes off the rails, like those are my favorite moments of television, when things are just like not making sense, and a scooter bot that like carries things in it like scares the shit out of Jon Stewart in the middle of a set, or people call in and say the dumbest things. Like, Would you ever call into a show now, like
Never.
as an adult?
Never.
I called into a radio show when I was my first year teaching out of college, and I regretted it immediately because I got it was on Halloween of all times, and it was the worst thing. And I can't believe people actively still try this.
It makes me so uncomfortable to think about, to be honest. But Mike, you loved the Mulaney. You loved the special. You want more of that.
Yeah, I mean, as a big Angelino, as a big LA kind of guy, this like spoke to me again. It was like perfect for, if anything, now I want to take John Mulaney and get him to do the Great LA Walk. I need to force him to do it this year. So
beg him.
I don't know if, I think it was something that was special for a week. I don't know if it's something I would want to see him continue to do, because then it sort of loses. There was something like special about that.
I think you have to move cities. I think you, because he's not even like a real like LA person, right? Like, he can just take on different, because listen, Jessica, who was really liking it, had said to me as we were watching it, she's like, if you don't live in Los Angeles, like, how do you enjoy this? How do you access this? And I think there's a similar point to that, but I think you're right, Mike. Doing it like every day in the talk show. I mean, listen, John Oliver, I will always say, gets as much grace as he gets because he's only on one day a week. So I think Mulaney even less so. Like 6 episodes in the fall, 6 episodes in the spring, a different city, do the Survivor route, and then that's it. Like, keep it minimal, and I think it would do wonders.
Yeah.
I have to say, I was obsessed with his style. Whoever his stylist was, like, shout out to them. That's my.
Of course,
input,
what Jazz has to add. Yeah. Jazz is like, let's talk about the below the line person who's dressed.
Yeah. Well, it was a really good set. Like, it looked. It looked really. First of all, it was very Netflix. Like, it looked like a Netflix room. So I think that was part of it. But it was also just like, it was very random when you think about like, what did the pitch sound like for this? So I want to sit in a living room, sort of, and then have like robots going around us, and then people come out and we talk about some random things like coyotes for a little while, or the entire episode. But also I think that also speaks to the new digital media age, because I've done a couple of stories recently on Dropout, which has a very passionate fan base. Mm-hmm. I've never been a part of something that, like, in a good way. Like,
can I tell you that every time you or Jenny says Dropout, all I think about is Amanda Seyfried's series. So I guess it's a good thing that wasn't the same year, because I would be real confused.
If you Google it, by the way, like, it always starts like it's like 3 of like the streamer, and then it comes Amanda Seyfried.
When originally Jenny pitched me a story, I was like, about the Dropout?
Making a comeback.
I'm like, oh. Okay.
I mean, like, it's very rare that we have, and I'm saying internet trolls, but they are doing good. They speak so positively about it, and you see like, oh, you can easily turn though. I could see you could turn to the dark side and become Anakin. But they're really passionate about the show. They love it. And I think this whole new digital media age, we're reinventing. I think there was a cover story this week about it, written by a dude at Variety. On the remote control, like how people are consuming content, and we've been begging the Emmys to catch up with this.
Yeah. Well, this will also come to, and I will say that the calendar is going to have to get updated. I know I'm going to sound like a broken record, but the TV Academy calendar cannot continue to not be because we're so stuck in the calendar of September as new shows, and that's not the case anymore. And so, like, the Emmy calendar should not be. It needs to be the calendar year.
Oh, you want to do it? Oh, you want to do January to December?
Mm-hmm. I'm so done with the June 1st to May 31st. I am completely done with it.
I've never heard this pitch before. How do you handle like an Abbott Elementary then? Like that run, like in the 2 people here who have advocated for 22 episodes a season for these shows. How do you handle this monster that you're now creating?
I don't know. There's a lot of questions, and I could have a whole separate conversation about this. And I mentioned it in a spoiler alert, in my editor's letter in our first Emmy edition, because I just really think that model is built around year of a world where September is when every new show starts and May is when every show ends. And that's just not the world we live in anymore. We are awarding these shows, and we're talking about shows like we always bring up the Bear example, that we're awarding a show that aired almost a full year ago. That's already airing another season by the time we're voting for it. It's just, I just don't think it's effective in the TV landscape we live in today. And like you said, Mike's cover story talks so much about this model that we're kind of going back to and reflecting the broadcast model. But that's something that I think is not going to change, is that these shows are going to continue to premiere around the year.
I think the thing is, as long as the right now the wheel deal with the broadcast networks, it has another year or two left. I forget. I think it's up in 2026. As long as the Emmys are on the broadcast networks, they'll keep it in September. But once things change, and who knows who makes a play for the Emmys, if anyone, by the way. But if it does end up going to a streamer, then I could very well see that becoming a bigger argument, because that's probably the main thing that's kept it from switching calendar. Now, the other thing that we have to think about is, does the Emmys then want to be the same calendar as the Oscar season? Because I was thinking
about Emmys in January or February, which
it'll always be seen still, even though we all know TV is better than film. It'll still be seen as the stepchild to the Oscars, and they don't want that.
But I am like, because now you got some wheels turning. I think there is a tweak you can make to the calendar. Maybe it's like a July to June 31st. Then you're like literally in the half year calendar. And I've always advocated to have the Emmys in August. Like, I think Emmy August sounds like right at the end of the summer, like could, in theory, work, or even you probably could even still keep it September. But there is something to be said about how the because really what we're doing is we're still keeping broadcast relevant by keeping it. So I guess, do you want to be the one that says, like, you just need to figure out a new model for yourself, Abbott Elementary and Law and Order, and then we'll meet you. This also goes to my point. That's why 13 episode seasons would work much better. Just saying.
Well, guys, I think we're going to have to leave it at that, actually, because listen,
what a good discussion.
Emily's got to edit more stories and put together issues and scream at me for not turning in my column yet, because I just can't. I'll get to it, Emily. I promise.
I think this week, guys, this week was the first time that I had to, I think in the years that I've been here now, the first time that I made an angry call to one of our staffers who was late on a story. And it was not you, Mike.
It wasn't me.
It was not you, Mike. But I was like, listen, I love you, but this is not how this works. Make your deadlines, people.
Speaking of, I have a deadline tomorrow for Emily. So I put it on your calendars, people, and then you highlight it and even block off time.
I check my Emily deadlines. I'm like, oh my God.
Jazz sends them to me weeks before the deadline. She's the dream.
Yeah, Jazz is really early. I'm usually on the day, with a few minutes left.
Oh, Jazz is the best. Jazz is
Mike's
the best.
Mostly like me, where he's like the day of, the deadline day, but 10 p.m., 11 p.m., which is the same time I'm also doing it. So it works for me.
Still part of the day. You didn't give me a time. 11:59. 11:59.
That's exactly. Then
I love that. When somebody says they're going to get it to you by the end of the day, you're like, that's going to be 11:59 p.m.
You didn't say work day. You said end of day.
Oh, and by the way, for me, the day is before I go to bed. So it may be 1:30 in the morning, but that's still technically that previous day.
Honestly, same. I haven't gone to bed yet. Same. I was sending copy this morning or last night at probably 11:45. I was like, ooh. It probably looks a little crazy to the design team that I'm like, here, guys.
And this is how the sausage is
from
made.
Emily.
Yeah. Oh, actually, we should say one last thing, though, because HBO thought they were going to sit this year out on the TV movie space, and they decided not to, dropping The Great Lillian Hall on May 31st with Jessica Lange and Lily Rabe to make Emily's life better.
Well, guess they're not getting any promotion for it. So.
It's not TV. It's HBO.
It's not TV. It's HBO.
All right, guys.
HBO.
Well, I'll see you in person next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
After the break, we talked to Expats executive producer Lulu Wang and star Sarayu Blue. From Los Angeles, this is the Award Circuit Podcast. And we're back. It's the Variety Award Circuit Podcast, and I'm Michael Schneider. Based on Janice J.K. Lee's 2016 novel, The Expatriates, the 6-episode Prime Video limited series, The Expats, follows an international community in Hong Kong whose lives are bound together forever following a sudden family tragedy. Nicole Kidman portrays Margaret, a woman who has moved her whole family to Hong Kong. Sarayu Blue plays career-driven Hillary, whose friendship with Margaret is fractured by fate. And Ji Young-yu stars as Mercy, a carefree New Yorker just out of college who becomes entangled in the lives of the Hong Kong expat community.
I think my marriage is over.
I'm sorry. Do you ever imagine yourself living a completely different life? Being a completely different person?
All the time.
Soon turned out, had a heart pass. You sang karaoke to this.
I did.
Surprise! Much mistrust. Let's go.
Variety's Jazz Tangcay talked to Wang and Blue about the series, shooting during COVID, and how Blue's friends have reacted to some of the characters' choices. Jazz began by asking Wang why she first turned down the project and then changed her mind.
I think that in retrospect, I am just very careful about how we grow as businesses, as filmmakers, as artists. I think that growth is great, but it has to be sustainable. And I think that I was just careful about any kind of leap that felt like too large of a leap where I would lose control of my creative vision and how I would be able to really curate like the process and the group of people, like the cast and the writers that I would want to work with. And so I just didn't want to get into a scenario where everybody's really excited and then I get into it and I can't really dictate the process of making. Because I think the process of making the art is as important, if not more important, than the result. And so that's why I said no initially. But then having further conversations with Nicole, she was so supportive of allowing me and helping me to have my process within Amazon and making sure that the studio supported who I wanted to cast, who I wanted to put in the writer's room, the perspectives that I wanted to tackle with this particular story.
And we're so glad you're here and you said yes to it.
Yes,
and
we are.
Right. I want to talk about the casting because you mentioned that. Like, how did you find like the right Hillary? And, talk about finding, your Mercy too, and your incredible ensemble cast.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, I wanted this series to really feel like an ensemble. And I knew that every single character had their own strength, their own quirks. And it was just about finding that balance and having Nicole be Margaret, knowing that she was at the center of it. I wanted to make sure that the other women were just as strong as, particularly because it's Nicole Kidman, right? And she is such a star. People recognize her. That I needed women who were equally strong in their presence and while also being a good balance to whatever Nicole was bringing to Margaret. And so, of course, when I was casting Hillary, Gursimran talked about Gursimran Santi, who wrote this character so much from her own personal experience as a Sikh American woman, knowing that we wanted somebody who was funny. We always wrote Hillary to be funny. And so when Sarayu's name came up, I knew that she was really, really great and would be a great balance to have somebody who had a natural sense of humor, but ultimately has the range to do both, to be able to like pivot on a dime from comedy. You think that she's telling this funny story, but then like dovetailing right into something that's so personal and traumatic. When with Mercy, we knew that was likely going to be a newcomer, a discovery, and we were looking for vulnerability as well as screen presence, somebody who was young and, felt like a mature adult in some ways because she's putting on that mask, but then still had that vulnerability. And I just think these three women, between Ji-young and Sarayu and Nicole, these are three women who are so different. We don't get to see these types of women together. And so much of the show, they're actually not together. That's the interesting thing too, is that, right? Like you guys don't have a lot of scenes together, and yet we needed them to feel really, really connected.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Hillary, I mean, what a character. I mean, but I think, and we've said this before, she's like the most relatable woman out of all of them, at least for me personally. But like, what was it about her character that spoke to you? And like when you got the script that said, I absolutely need to be a part of this series?
I mean, it jumped off the page. I mean, Hillary really came to life so quickly and so visibly from just the writing. And I think part of what makes her so singular, I mean, this is something that I've been realizing as people watch the show, they really want to call me and text me and talk about moments and talk about, Hillary's storyline and why this happened and how that happened. And what I'm realizing is I kept thinking, what is it that makes her so singular in this sense? Like relatable, but also unique, special, surprising. And believe it or not, I think it's that she's a dimensional South Asian woman. I mean, I think that's a huge thing. Maybe not even South Asian, maybe just to see a woman that's 40 and going through so much of a journey of her life. It's a reckoning with her family. She's going through a breakup with one of her best friends. She's going through a divorce. I mean, these are major life moments that so many of us experience and don't get to see represented. And so I think there's something about Hillary that is really all of us. And there's something about that that's always going to be thrilling. We love to see, I mean, that's why representation is so exciting, because we get to see ourselves in a life experience, in whatever capacity. And I think, you see that it's like Lulu was saying, that we're all so different and we don't have a lot of stuff together. But that's what Lulu and the entire writing team brought to the storytelling of Expats, is that all of these people are really relatable. All of these people are really human. Whether it's Mercy, whether it's Margaret, whether it's Clark, whether it's Pastor Allen, they have these moments that are just kind of like a punch in the gut because it's so raw and visceral. And that's what's so special to me about Expats. And I think it's why when people watch it, they want to have like a support group.
Sure, yeah.
They want to have like a co-processing experience because it feels so real. And you're like, oh my God, this was represented.
Yeah.
And I also think like Hillary is the most relatable because she's not the one who lost a kid. Like she didn't have her child lost and she didn't lose a kid. And so by like not having her experience be so extreme, but being on the periphery of this huge trauma that's happened to other people, she's kind of asking herself, like, am I still allowed to have a bad day?
Right.
Right? Do you know? Because like nowadays we live so adjacent and we know so much about everybody. And of course, like all of this stuff is going on and we need to have perspective. And it's like, okay, like, but it, and then Margaret talks about like the grief hierarchy and my pain is so much worse. And it's just like, if this is your best friend saying that, like, of course we understand that what Margaret's going through is worse than any person should. Yeah. But then it leaves no room for Hillary to just be like, I also had a bad day. Like, I'm also going through a divorce. I also have my feelings hurt. But it makes her feel like she's not allowed to feel those things because somebody else experienced something worse.
Yeah. It's such an interesting moment when she says that, when Margaret says, you would never understand because you're not a mother, which has always hit me so deeply as somebody who is child-free. I understand that moment on such a, personal level. But then on top of that really, I'm sure Hillary would love to say to her best friend, well, I just found out my husband's having an affair.
Right.
But there's no room for that.
But there's no room for that. And it is an interesting, I mean, it's a really raw moment where humanity clashes, and we don't see that in real time very often.
It's so real. I mean, and then Hillary's unraveling. It's just so fascinating to watch. Like, you see it when her mom arrives and she's like, wait, as she works out the time. And then you've got that scene in the hospital with her dad, which I thought was so beautiful. And we've discussed that before, but like, you know, what was that like to really put that together and to shoot and just have that moment for Hillary where she's like
releasing and then regretful of having, you know, those be her final words to her father. I mean, so much of this, I hope it's okay for me to say, came from Simran's own experiences. She would, you know, come into the writer's room, and this is a writer who's been working for decades, and, you know, she was on Game of Thrones and like all these different shows, and has never had the chance to bring herself into any of these stories, you know, her life, her relationships, her experiences. And so she would come in almost apologetic and be like, I'm sorry, I'm upset. And we'd be like, what's wrong? She's like, no, I'm not going to talk about it. Let's get to work. We're like, no, what's going on? You're clearly upset. And we would just talk. And then we'd be like, well, would you be willing to put that into the story? And I think it was just sort of an eye-opening experience for all of us, because from Simran's perspective, she's like, was shocked. She was like, no one has ever even asked me like what's going on in my life, much less like had interest to put that into the story. We were like, but this is so real, and we haven't seen, you know, this from this particular perspective. And so so much of that, you know, was all of us talking about anger and female rage, and how important is it to express it? How important is it to let it go? When do we have, it's important to have the rage, but you don't want to hold on to it because the only person that it's going to poison is yourself. Mm-hmm. You know, so we had all of those conversations in creating that scene, and Sarayu and Simran had many conversations as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, getting to talk to Lulu, and Lulu set a conversation up between me and Simran pretty early on. I mean, before we'd even gotten to Hong Kong, just so I could have like conversations around the character, around what meant what to her, what relationships felt like, you know, but also, again, it's such a testament to the writing and to Lulu, because I remember that day and I was really nervous about filming that piece. You know, it is so visceral and so deep. And I was like, I still have a hard time like even processing what that day was like. And I remember being so nervous about it and coming to set and just being like, oh, this is the moment, right? And you were so, this is the thing about Lulu's direction, is she's so intuitive, and you were so thoughtful because you made a point that we did that first. And I'd never said, you know, I was nervous, but you didn't know like what that translated into necessarily. We didn't really get into it. And I remember you making sure that it was the first scene so that I could have it out of the way. And that's the kind of thoughtfulness. And then the set is so quiet, and she would come in, it was so cute too, because it would be these really intense moments, and she'd just kind of be like, kind of like creep in and be like, okay. So, and she'd talk really quietly. And it's that kind of sensitivity that allows me personally, I can't speak to everyone, but I would assume everyone, to feel safe going into those deeper, more vulnerable moments. That sort of willingness to let me have my space and also still give me notes and be so gentle and intuitive about it. And that's like, you know, that's sort of why so many of these moments are what they are, is because there was a generosity in how they're being filmed.
Yeah. Sorry, I want you to talk about the elevator scene in episode 4.
Yeah.
Being trapped in I was going to say lift, is the worst thing in the world.
Sure, it's my actual nightmare.
But to be trapped with your mother who was judging you about your shoes and everything else. Talk about that scene, and also have you ever been stuck? I want you stuck in an elevator.
Well, fun fact.
Yes. Okay. This is so crazy because I didn't know any of this. When like Hillary is child free, or you know that's part of her journey,
right?
Wanting to not have children, and Sarayu is child free and had made that choice. And we had those conversations after she had been cast. But then the crazy coincidence is that I had written these scenes where she's trapped in an elevator, having no idea that Sarayu is actually claustrophobic.
Like that's like my biggest fear. Like it was like, it's not just like, oh, ha ha. It's like I can barely handle stories about it. Like, it's like I can't even imagine the thought.
And like, I think we learned this because Hong Kong, a lot of skyscrapers, lots of, and quarantine, she had to be stuck in a hotel glass box for 21 days. And so there were a lot of conversations about the panic that it was really, really challenging. And then I was like, oh, well, that's going to be fun. I've written a whole episode where she's stuck in an elevator.
You are a trooper,
No, you're the trooper because you weren't like, change the script now.
I could never imagine.
Well, I mean, to be fair, the easiest if you ever have this severe fear is filming because there's at least one wall down for the camera. So like, to be honest, that did bring me some relief. But I will say it was one of those things where I was like, oh my God, it's almost laughable. Like, thank goodness I can have some sense of humor about myself at this point that I was like, of course, this is the biggest opportunity of my career. Like the biggest opportunity as a human being to get to film in Hong Kong with Lulu for 6 months, dive into this role, all these things. And I have to be trapped in an elevator with my judgmental mother. Like it was like a real convergence of all the things. But what I will say was the actual storyline was so powerful and so the butcher was so incredible.
Yeah, incredible. I mean, I think it was some of my favorite scenes to film because, like the containment, that whole episode, I love the way it was contained because it was for me and Anna, it wasn't like, okay, we're doing this choreography, like episode 5. So much of it is like choreography with the camera and these like single takes, unedited, and all of it has to work out. And here it was just like, us and the actors in a space, and that was it. And
we got to shoot in order because we were in a space. We got to shoot chronologically, so it really did feel like a play.
Yes, exactly. And that was always the idea, was that I wanted it to feel like a play and trapped physically and emotionally. But specifically, the elevator was some of the most fun because of the humor. Yeah. Like, I just died laughing constantly. I mean, there was some stuff that was even broader that didn't make it into the final show because we really needed to balance the tone of it. But that's something that's always been important to me, to have humor and have the right size of comedy with something as devastating as what, Margaret is going through in the morgue. And so how do you do that without like undercutting the seriousness of what's going on, particularly because there is a shift between Hillary and her mother and what happens later. Like, you think it's just this banter between the two of them, and all of it is, funny and a little toxic, but funny until there's that turn. And so that was so fun to like, kind of carry that tone of that humor, knowing that we were going to then like pivot. Yeah.
Well, yeah. Because that monologue is just such a surprise.
Yeah.
Right.
You're just in this moment and you think it's kind of like, this mom and daughter, and oh my God, this mom just won't leave her alone. And oh, this is so uncomfortable. And then it's kind of funny. And then Jennifer, who played Tilda.
Which is not her real name, by the way.
No.
Tilda is just what Hillary and David call her.
Yes.
Because they didn't ever bother to... This is all backstory in my life. They never bothered to learn her real names.
And apparently what Sarayu calls her. Because I'm still there. But yes, exactly. And, but it's this... And then all of a sudden, this whole truth comes out, right? She just kind of blows up.
And it's so gorgeous watching Sarayu do that scene because she is so funny. She is so like, everything rolls off the shoulder, like, no, it's no big deal or whatever. And then just the way, like, every time I watch it, you go, did you know? Did you about makeup? And then your lip starts to quiver just like a little. Like, that's where it hits so well, when it's like she doesn't just let it go, right? You can tell how much she's trying to hold it in while like slowly releasing what she's been carrying her whole life to a stranger in the elevator.
She's like, you're going to talk about my period? I'm going to talk about something too.
No, it's so much fun to watch. I mean, what was one of your favorite scenes to shoot?
Oh, there are so many. My God. I loved doing the restaurant scene with Jack. The bar scene, I should say. Yeah. I love them both. Although I did love that restaurant scene with Jack because you had me do the monologues. So you were like, don't let him come in. Don't let him say a line. Yeah, and I just got to like blow through it.
Well, the majority of it is on her back too. It's just on Jack's face. Yeah. And it was just, it was fun.
But I love doing the bar scene with Jack because it was a really, I had a few friends who would text me like, why are you going? Why are you trying to get him back? I'm so mad at you. Were you one of the people? I think you messaged me too. Maybe not.
No, I was like,
no, it wasn't
I
you.
screamed at the TV. I was like, don't do that. That's what I did.
One of my friends, no, because I don't think I even knew you actually. Now that I think about it, I met you really at episode 5. Somebody, when we did the screen, that's right. So, no, somebody texted me so mad about me going back. Like, how could you? Why would you? I hate him. And I said, but how many women do you know who do this? You have this, you're with this guy, he's not good enough. Everyone knows he's not good enough. And you have this moment where you just kind of, you think to yourself, I don't want it to change. Right? It's the devil that's familiar. That's the phrase I'm looking for. It's the devil that's familiar. And I think that's kind of that moment where Hillary, and this is what I mean about her being so human, is it's that moment where she's going, I know he's not good enough, but what like everything's falling apart. I'm losing my friendship. I don't know who I have anymore. We're not having kids. Oh God, what's happening in my life? Who do I have? And she's going to grab onto David and give it one more shot. And I think that there's something about that scene that for me felt so real.
Totally. And I love that scene too, because you actually do see the love between the two of you, like what was there, and that sometimes is indescribable. Sure, he's not good enough on paper on these things, but there's a sense of humor. Yeah. There's a real tenderness between the two of you. And I kind of love that, like, we as an audience don't know if we should be fighting for you to get back together. Right. No, but no. And like, I think it's complicated. And I love asking people whose side they're on at the end. With the lipstick on the wine glass situation.
Ooh, that is that's a controversial moment.
It is, right? Because I have so many people being like, of course, of course, she's not listening to him. Of course he's going to turn away. He feels betrayed. Right. You're like, so she's expected to just drink out of a glass with a dirty glass?
Oh, my best friend was like, I think you could have let that go. I was like, I didn't write it.
Yes, Sarayu.
Yeah, I mean, clearly.
Come on, context. You gotta be aware of what's happening. The man has feelings.
And then I have another friend who was like, who's going to drink a glass with somebody else's lipstick on it? Like, what? That's it. And I was like, it's a really, and I also actually I was so nervous about how it was going to come out because that day was like a lot going on, but I ended up really loving the car scene with us after that. Mm-hmm. There's something about David and Hillary that also feels very, I don't know, complicated and surprising and believable and just all the things that you are like, yeah, I buy this marriage.
Like an adult relationship.
It's a proper, But don't you love that you've got this show that has audiences and viewers just so passionate and so opinionated? And
my favorite is I've gotten messages and comments being like, how dare you not tell us everything? There's so many answers that are unanswered. I hate it so much. Damn this show. Make another season now. I demand it.
Someone pulled her aside on Sunday and was like, I need you to tell, even if it's a lie, just tell me what happened to Gus.
I got picked up from the airport and the driver was this, I told you, I texted this to you, right? This older Ukrainian man, and I get in the car and he's like, Lulu Wang, you are the filmmaker of Expats. I was like, yes. Okay. How did you even recognize my name? All right. And he's like, I was like, are you watching the show? He's like, you must tell me right now what happens to Gus. And this was like episode 3.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, I shouldn't tell you. Also, you're watching my show? Like, have you, like, and he's like, yeah, my wife and I are watching and we need to know right now, is he going to be okay? And I was like, just keep watching the show.
Yeah.
And also, we have an hour and a half before I can get home. Can we get on the road? Let's get on the road.
It is really a cool feeling, though. I feel like people are invested in this show and in these people in a way that you certainly don't ever want to expect it, right? Not in our industry. You just never know. But there is something around, again, the way people are so passionate about it, like you said, and the way they want to sort of process it together. And it feels like it's an experience that's really hit people on a real deep level. It's really resonated with humanity, which is what so much of what you were wanting was for this show to spur conversation.
Yeah.
And it really has.
Yeah. Talking about Hillary, like, she's broken in her own way, as we know. But like, I love the costume conversation that like so many of her outfits were like literally just her being like a bandaged up. And then we see that evolution, right? As she, she finds her freedom, in a way. Like, did you have much input with the costumes? Like, talk about the costume conversation.
I mean, so much of that was Lulu and Malgosia. And by the time I came in, it was kind of great, actually, because I always love fittings. I love them so much because I feel like it's where I get a lot of information about the character, because how a character carries themselves changes. I mean, me walking in the heels I walked in compared to the ones I changed into. It's a great example. Right? And it's like, for listeners, I'm wearing Birkenstocks.
Right now.
Yeah, exactly. But, well, cheap versions. But anyway, but like, that's one of the things that was so wonderful, because there was sort of like they had an idea of Hillary, she'd already been written as this very put together, sort of pristine character. She really controls how she's viewed by the world. Her makeup, her hair, her looks, everything is just perfectly curated. And I think what's really amazing is that as you watch, you slowly see sort of as you called it, an unraveling. And then she wears this red dress to go see David, which is, to me, very, it's very feminine. It's very wild for Hillary. It's this one moment of like, I'm going to throw this at him, and then she pulls right back and she just wraps right back up and does all the things. And then you see the elevator where she's like, I always call it like a 16-year-old again. She goes from being this 40-year-old woman, and then suddenly her mom arrives and boom, within 3 seconds of like, what toothpaste do you use?
She's wearing like slippers.
Yeah. And like, a cotton sort of like onesie or whatever. And then in that, she's so raw in that moment. And then you just start to watch the shift. And it's so beautiful. And I felt like I was part of the conversation. I never felt like it was a choice. I just felt like what was really cool was the structure was built, which helped me then be informed in trying to walk in those heels is literally, a feat. But for Hillary, it's easy.
I love Hillary's silhouette. Like, we always talked about all three characters as having their own unique silhouette. And Hillary's is the most put together, monochromatic. And yet we wanted to feel realistic, right? We didn't want her to be a caricature. And what I really love, and I always get really emotional, is when she, in episode 5, finally talks about her name. And I think so much about like all of this beige and white that she puts on as Hillary Starr, and who she could have been. Like, there's something like stunted about her growth, right? Because of she was severed from being Harpreet Singh, who is who she was born into this world as, and then losing Harpreet in 8th grade because she got made fun of so much and had to become Hillary, for to not be bullied, and then losing her own last name to take on Star because patriarchy and getting married. And so it's like, how much of yourself as a woman of color do you lose by assimilating into another culture, by getting married, by all of these things. And so you kind of start to go, oh, like, this is why this mask is actually Hillary Starr, and her journey is that she needs to, she'll never fully be Harpreet Singh either, but she needs to kind of find a space in which she can be herself and not the reflection of what society wants from her.
I mean, it's almost like at the end, like, it's really when she's finally getting to know herself.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's another thing that's so beautiful is Hillary's at the start of her life. She ends the show at the start of her life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was a beautiful ending. And I'm sorry that people have said they want more. I'm like, it's kind of perfect. Like, that tracking shot where we see, we see Nicole and we, like, she's smiling, and then with the rug walking through, it's like this whole new chapter. Yeah, I mean, like, talk about bad ending and giving them a happy ending, I guess, right? It is a happy ending.
It is. I think that people expect happy endings to be resolution, right? Like a plot resolution, and being told exactly everything that happens. But for me, hope is the happy ending. That these characters can all have some source of hope, some well of resilience. That is the most important thing. That they don't give up and they, take one step after another. And that was a speech that I wrote in the edit, that very last voiceover, because I felt like we just needed, to hear particularly Mercy, who's this young person, and she's been as destroyed, as anybody in many ways. And, and also she's gotten herself into this very adult situation, or many adult situations, that she doesn't know how to navigate. She has a toxic relationship with her mother, who doesn't know how to comfort and how to really help her daughter. And so she's now trying to be strong for her baby. Like, it's about generational trauma. It's about all of these things. And so I just wanted all three of these women to feel a lightness and a sense of hope.
Yeah. I want to talk about your pre-filming rituals. Like, what were your rituals? I mean, I'm not going to ask you if you cooked for Lulu, because apparently you're not a good cook.
Well, I think that is common knowledge. But Lulu's a great cook.
I cooked for you
Yeah. You're a really good cook.
Oh, thank you very much. We ate a lot. We did eat a lot. We actually did eat. That was our prep. Was just to get together and eat a lot. Even though I actually really, really try to get healthy now before a production, because it requires such stamina.
Yeah.
The effort was there. The result.
Well, it's hard when you're Hong Kong. Exactly. It's a little bit, you're like, I'm only going to get to do this once.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe not, but you know what I mean.
Lots of dumplings. I don't know. I really just like spending time and having the actors spend time with each other if they're meant to be people who, characters are supposed to know each other really well. So I had Sarayu and David spend time together, Nicole. I'm sorry, I'm switching between character and real names.
Right.
Sarayu
and Jack.
Nicole and Brian, because they're supposed to be family, and so I had them spend time together.
Nicole and I got a little time together too, which was really nice.
Exactly, and Sarayu and Nicole, but I had them all kind of stay away from Ji-young, because she is supposed to be sort of the outsider in the group. She doesn't have a long relationship with any of them, which was, I'm sure isolating for Ji-young, but I talked to her about that and said, it's important that you don't get to know people really well, because so much of Mercy is about her insecurity and being an outsider.
Also, she and I had exact opposites filming. If she was working, I wasn't. If I was working, she wasn't. So in a way, that sort of inherently happened. But we did get some time together.
Yeah.
But that was once we'd started filming.
Yeah.
Also, go eat.
We went dancing too.
Yeah.
Ji-young and I went and she took me to a hip hop class.
I remember that.
Remember that? Yeah, that was really fun. I think that we didn't talk heavily about the scripts necessarily. I think it was just good to get to know each other.
Yeah, which I personally love. I'm not an actor who likes to spend a lot of time doing all the math. So I appreciated that wasn't a big part of it. It was more let's just get into the work. Let's just do our jobs, which I love.
So if Lulu cooked for you, did you teach Lulu how to do makeup without a mirror?
Oh my God.
No, but I will say Sarayu has become my skincare guru. This was not during production or
That's
anything.
true.
During production, I was lucky if I put sunscreen on, because it was so hot. That's the one thing I'd be slathering on.
Yeah, but nothing was going to stay on. Nothing was going to stay on.
So hot. But since then, I'm always looking at her and being like, she has such great skin. Can you give me tips? What should I do? And she's introduced me to a lot of really affordable but practical skincare.
That is literally my motto. Effective and affordable. But don't tell the industry because I want to not be affordable.
I was just going to ask you to take it home with some skincare tips.
I know. I love skincare. I literally emailed Lulu my like full-on regimen.
Yeah, and her biggest advice was definitely like, if it's that expensive, it's usually marketing. A lot of
or
packaging and marketing. And so I was like, okay, good to know.
I started following all these cosmetic chemists, and I was like, oh, now I'm getting the real info.
And the truth is, it's because my mother saw me somewhere recently, like after production, and she was like, wrinkles, like you look horrible.
Oh, no, Reindeer.
The judgmental mother.
I need to talk to another immigrant person who understands my plight. And I turned to Sarayu and I said, apparently I have dry skin and wrinkles. Can you help me?
I think you need to do a show on judgmental mothers. Just
Our movie.
We do. I mean, but you do.
We can definitely collaborate on that.
I have stories.
Yeah.
That's Expats filmmaker Lulu Wang and star Sarayu Blue. Catch up on the series via Prime Video. And that's it for this edition of Variety's Award Circuit Podcast. Aaron Greenewald edited this episode, and Michael Schneider is the producer. Be sure to subscribe to the Award Circuit Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you download podcasts. Also, head on over to Variety.com and click on the Award Circuit tab to find the latest awards predictions and key races, as well as your daily fix of news, analysis, and reviews. For Jazz Tanke, Emily Longaretta, and Clayton Davis, I'm Michael Schneider, and we'll see you on the circuit.